Though not as dangerous as Detroit, their murder rate's worse. Still, there are 8 murders per week in Chicago. It's one of the more dangerous cities in America, but getting safer, say the police.
What's happening is we're lowering crime. We're doing it by arresting the right people, not by arresting everybody.
Murder and robbery are down from their peaks, but John Lott, president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, says Mayor Emanuel has made things worse. What do you mean?
Well, first of all, the crime numbers, there's a lot of problems with them. There's been a lot of corruption. They've reclassified crimes that would be murder or other types of violent crimes as less serious crimes, so we really don't even know.
Wait a second. I understand the police fudge all sorts of crime numbers, but with murder you have a body. How do they hide that?
Well, it's been amazing, some of the things that they've done. So let's say somebody gets beaten up and they die a couple days later, they'll classify that as a battery rather than a murder. They won't even they'll say the person, or other cases they say the person died from natural causes, even though the police, are stunned by the decision that's made there. And they do it time after time.
Crime is down in Chicago with these reports. Maybe they're fudged, but it's probably down, probably because it's down everywhere in America.
Right.
It's just a trend for reasons we can't be certain about.
Right. Even with the fudging, it's gone down much more in the rest of the United States and much more in other large cities than it's gone down in Chicago.
And one reason for that may be what most tough on crime people often say is the solution. Chicago in 1982 passed a ban on handguns, and they said, we're going to pass this. This is going to cut into the street shootings and the murder rate.
Right.
But let's put up the chart that we have of what did happen. So you see the murder, well, you tell it. The horizontal line shows 1982 when the ban went into effect. Before then, the murder rate was going down.
Right. Chicago's murder rate was going down. It was going down relative to other cities in the United States.
Yeah, this chart shows relative to other cities.
Right. But as soon as the ban went into effect, not only did Chicago's murder rate stop going down relative to other cities, it started rising relative to them. It's, just did the exact opposite. But the thing is, it's not unique in Chicago. Whether it's D.C. or any other place in the world, every time they've tried to ban guns, every single time murder rates have gone up.
To most of us in New York, this is counterintuitive. Ban guns, ban crime.
Well, you'd think so, but the problem you have to ask is who obeys these laws. It's basically the most law-abiding good citizens who obey the bans rather than the criminals. And rather than making it more difficult for criminals to commit crime, it's actually easier because they don't have to worry about victims defending themselves.
Now, Illinois became the last state in the union to allow concealed carry permits, so now guns are allowed in Chicago. But the law makes it tough for poor people.
I mean, it's extremely costly. To go through the permitting process is like $600. I mean, it's more than any other state. In Pennsylvania, it's $20 to go through the permitting process. In Indiana, it's $45. And that not only reduces the number of people who get permits, but it changes the mix. My research finds the people who benefit the most are the most likely victims of violent crime, poor blacks. But they're the very ones that can't afford $600 to go and get a permit to protect themselves. So you have permits, but giving it to the people who need it the least.
And that's the attitude in New York and in Chicago. Detroit's police chief, by contrast, encourages people to defend themselves.
Right. When the city went bankrupt, he went on the TV and said, look, we had a hard enough time protecting you to begin with. We're having to have these big cuts in the police, and he advised people to go out and get concealed carry permits. And they had, the next year, they had like a 19% drop in robbery. And he didn't say the whole thing was due to the permits, but he attributed a good percentage of that drop just to the fact that victims were able to go and defend themselves.
Now, beyond guns, you have other criticisms of Rahm Emanuel. Crony policing in some ways?
Well, look, more police mean less crime. And he had promised more police in the campaign. He actually cut it. But even worse, he moved around the police. If you have police in the city, where are you going to put them? You're going to put them where the crime rates are highest.
What did he do?
Well, he closed the detective bureaus in the high crime areas and moved the detectives across town to low crime areas.
Why?
Well, he had made promises during his first campaign that he was going to beef up policing in certain relatively affluent areas.
Where people contribute more.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not saying he did an irrational thing as far as winning elections go, but in terms of reducing crime. So you ended up, the crime still occurred in these high crime areas, even increased, but then the police had to drive all the way across town every time they wanted to go and solve a crime.
Finally, you have had a personal experience with Chicago politics.
I did. Actually, Mike Flannery was somewhat involved with this earlier, but when I was at Chicago, my book came out more.
University of Chicago.
I was at the University of Chicago. Mayor Daley, I wasn't his favorite guy. And he called up Hugo.
Because you were critical of these gun rules.
Right. Well, I'd have op-eds in like the Chicago Tribune or be speaking out on it, and he was one of the mayors leading the suits against gun makers. And anyway, I understand he was pretty upset by a couple of the op-eds that I had written. And so he called up the president of the University of Chicago, and he said he had all these wonderful things that he wanted to do with the university, but my continued presence at the University of Chicago was going to do irreparable harm to the relationship between the city and the school.
And you lost your job.
Right.
Thank you, John Lott. I'm glad you found other work.